We see Dreams Group. They're kind of taking on Bastion at this point. Unexpectedly, to me, I guess. I don't know if anyone else saw it coming. We get the Phoenix again.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Jean Grey is the Phoenix once again. She makes kind of short work of Sinister. She kind of like sucks the DNA out of him. When was the last time you had any DNA sucked out, Todd?
And cut.
Welcome to Towel Capes. I'm Cody Nestor. He's Todd Heel.
Hey, guys.
Today we're back to discuss the final 3 episodes of X-Men 97 Season 1, a 3-parter called Tolerance is Extinction. We're kicking off with our review of Episode 8. Todd, take it away. What did you think the story was for Episode 8?
So we've got more of Bastion's plan taking form here. We find that more humans have been infected by his kind of human sentinel hybrid type viruses. Leads to a surprise, a major assault on X Mansion. Yeah. Can't have an X-Men property proper without having a big major assault on X Mansion and left in ruins.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about that. So early on in Episode 8, we see that there's a kind of a news broadcast announcing Charles Xavier alive and well. He's shacked up with some space bitch up on in the Shi'ar Empire. So this kind of bugged me from the start because it's like you see on the news broadcast. I guess you're led to believe some asshole during the Shi'ar ceremony had like a camcorder running about recording the whole thing, and somehow they've taken that and I guess give it to Fox News on Earth.
Right.
And now you have the all behind the scenes footage of Charles Xavier is alive. He's got robotic space legs and he's married to a girl with like her helmet as her hair. It kind of bugged me. Like, I don't know, just little stuff like that sometimes takes me out of things for just a moment because like, who's up there recording that?
Yeah. Does the Shi'ar have their own version of hard copy or something?
Yeah, it's like Dateline tonight, Charles Xavier alive and well. And it kind of bugged me too because like that's something we'll kind of come back to, I think, when we talk about these 3 episodes is that pacing is an issue. And we kind of go right through this real quick. But like, it didn't really seem to me to register to the X-Men that like Charles Xavier is alive and well. I thought that was set up in the season that they didn't know, at least, right? Nobody really knew he was alive.
They assumed he was dead, yeah.
And it's just kind of like, it's kind of glossed over right from the beginning. And like, you get a throwaway line from like Wolverine where like, I guess to explain how the footage was sent out there, he's like, oh, it's Bastion. And I'm like, how do you know it was Bastion?
Right.
And what purpose is this to... Did Bastion get served by releasing this footage out to Dateline NBC or whatever, you know, in the Marvel universe?
Right.
Like, I don't know. It just kind of bugged me from the start. Anyway, in our last one of our last few episodes, we see Magneto. He survived Genosha. He's tied up in Bastion's basement. He's got his little man panties on.
Yeah.
Did you like the Magneto man panties, Todd?
I mean, you know, it's okay.
It's revealed that Bastion, I guess part of his grand plan, he's like abducted and transformed these humans, kind of unbeknownst to them, into these mutant sentinel hybrids all over the earth. And some notable ones like have been changed besides like the random ones that look like King of the Hill characters. We're like just some good old boys in the field like, huh? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of them like when they're like springing into action, and you know Bastion does his version of Order 66 for all mutants, I guess. But you see some notable people that are made into hybrids. You got Roberto's butler.
Yes.
Somehow he was turned into a sentinel hybrid under everybody's nose. You've got poor Beast's new news reporter love interest.
Yeah.
She was turned into one. Also, Bastion's own mother, I noticed as well. That was supposed to be his mother, right?
I
like
think
his actual real mother.
That was his actual mother.
He actually turned into a mutant sentinel hybrid. So yeah. So that's his grand plan to basically he's taken all around Earth. He's again abducted, transformed these people, these unsuspecting humans into these mutant sentinel hybrids. And we have the kind of the climax of this first episode. You've got Cyclops, Jean, Nathan. They're kind of evading the Sentinels in Scott's Porsche.
Yeah.
What did you think of that scene, Todd? What did you think? They originally start off in the, I don't know, 3rd or 4th version of the Blackbird.
Right.
What did you think of the Porsche scene?
Yeah, pretty cool. You know, Scott always has him a nice vehicle till Logan somehow manages to screw it up.
Right, yeah. We've also got in the climax, we've got Roberto's mother telling him to turn himself over to the Sentinel hybrids.
Yes.
Her big thing is image. The image of her family, her corporate image. We kind of see the Sentinel hybrids kind of bust in with Roberto and Jubilee during like a party or some kind of gala event she's holding.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, you got to go with them, son. And so that kind of betrayal kind of sticks with Roberto throughout the rest of this episode and kind of going into the episodes 9 and 10. We also see the lady from the UN. She's also revealed to have been part of Magneto's, well, not Magneto's, but Mr. Sinister's and Bastion's plan. So she's kind of having a little back and forth with Magneto, trying to get him to talk. She's feeling guilty. She's got a heavy conscience over all of this. He's not speaking to her, that kind of stuff. And it's a kind of, I guess, a situation of like, I guess, second thoughts, regrets, that kind of situation, more than I bargained for type deal, I guess, in her mind. And she decides to go ahead and free Magneto from his confines here. What does the newly freed Magneto do right after being released?
He decides to use his powers to take the entire planet dark. He just basically shuts everything down.
Yeah, he flies up to, I guess, the North Pole, uses like the magnetic force fields of the Earth, and basically sends the entire Earth into a complete, utter blackout.
Yeah.
So another good like showing of Magneto's powers here. You kind of get this set against Bastion and the UN lady kind of having a conversation where she's like, Magneto was right. And I think this show goes into a lot of like kind of putting you in the mindset that Magneto,
maybe he is right.
Yeah, that's my question to you. What do you feel about, in the context of the show, about the character in general? Do you feel like he is right in his mission based on the events we've seen that's happened so far this season, Tyler?
Yeah, that's always kind of been that great kind of dichotomy between Charles Xavier's teachings and Magneto's beliefs. You know, who truly is right here? Is there a happy middle ground, or is it just that black and white? And this show kind of leads you to believe that maybe, hey, Magnus is onto something here.
Yeah, based on the events of this season, like I can definitely see Magneto's point of view here. I mean, the things that happened in Genosha, the stuff we'll see from America's response to that, from the stuff that Magneto might possibly be doing in the next 2 episodes. Like, again, with his backstory and with his history, it does look like the creators of the show were very Magneto pro.
Right.
They're very much on Magnus' side here, and that shows through, which I think is an interesting, again, dynamic than always looking for things from Xavier's point of view.
Exactly,
which is what you get a lot of times in X-Men media.
Yeah.
Like, most of the movies are always from Charles's point of view and those kind of things. So I thought the action here, I guess it was kind of sparse a little bit for this episode. This is kind of setting things in motion for what will follow in 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Again, I think the animation, if you like the art style of the animation, if you found that as a positive throughout the season, I think you're not going to have anything to complain about here. If you think the animation style is negative, you might have some problems here. But I think we've agreed the whole time it's solid to great at some point.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anything that I can kind of fault that here.
No.
In our final scene, we see Professor X. He crash lands back in with his little ship in some kind of Shi'ar bug suit.
Right.
Did you notice that? It's just like a weird little kind of suit he's wearing.
Yeah.
And he immediately starts barking those telepathic orders. He's like, "To me, my X-Men." And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up, Charles."
What gives you the right?
Yeah, what? Just the utter gall and audacity to come down here after all this time. But that's kind of our last and final scene from episode 8. Again, this is kind of setting things in motion. It's a 3-parter, so we're kind of starting off a little bit slow here, seeing what Bastion had going on. Magneto shuts that shit down the moment he's freed, but now you're left in. Magnus is still on the board in play. What's he going to do?
Yeah.
Bastion's still on the board in play. He's still out there. What are the X-Men going to do about that? So, Todd, what did you think overall about episode 8? Give us your review score and your thoughts on episode 8 here.
Overall, I think I'll give this one, a 7. It was a good, solid episode. I think a highlight for me would be that X-Mansion assault with Nightcrawler and Wolverine.
Yeah, we didn't really mention that. Wolverine and Nightcrawler both kind of get a good moment here.
Yeah.
Wolverine's kind of been sidelined a little bit during this season, so it was nice to see him kind of get a little action scene. He's flying through the air, slicing these Sentinel hybrids in half. Like, really good stuff for him to kind of... And he gets another moment, I think, in episode 9 as well. But good to see him actually get a good moment where he's kind of been at the back burner this season so far.
But I think overall a good solid episode. I mean, this is episode 8 of 10, but it's like a 1-parter of a 3-parter, so it's kind of setting things up. But I think it does a good job.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to go with a 7 too. I think it's still kind of keeping on that same track of like good quality. It's not. It didn't let anything down. It's setting the stage for 8. It does have a little bit of pacing issues. We really quickly go from like, I think it was Charles was revealed to be alive in episode 6. He sees what happens on Earth with Gambit. Here in episode 8, he's back on Earth, and the X-Men like learn about him on, like I said, Fox News.
Right.
And they don't seem too phased by it. And then we'll talk about how they react in episode 9. But like, one of the big problems of this season, which we'll talk about when we wrap up the season later on with our thoughts, like, is pacing.
Yeah.
And this has a little bit of pacing problems, and those kind of things really keep it from being like top tier with this episode, but solid overall, I think. So moving on, Todd, to episode 9. What do you think the story was for episode 9?
So Chuck is back. Not everybody's happy.
Yeah, not everybody's happy. That's
so
true.
they decide to take the gang and head back to Muir Island. We see Magneto show up, and he kind of offers an ultimatum, like, who's with me? We're going up into outer space to my new asteroid. And then the X-Men kind of get a plan they're going to break up into teams. One team is going to take on Bastion and his bunch. One team is going to go up to the asteroid and try to convince Magneto to restore power to the Earth.
And we do have a couple X-Men defects to the Magnus side. We see Rogue sides with Magnus. She decides to head up to Asteroid M along with Roberto as well.
Yeah.
He decides, he's like, I got nothing left down here. My parents have disowned me. They were going to lock me up in a mutant sentinel hybrid jail.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, I've got nothing left. Let's try this guy's way of doing things. One thing I wanted to kind of go into here is talk about Xavier. And like, I kind of mentioned, I think in our last episode when we really focused on that Xavier-centric episode, that I just wish he was dead.
I remember that.
I wish he would have stayed dead.
Yeah.
And I now more so wish he would have stayed dead. I know he plays a big factor in this episode. He plays a big factor in what you'll see in like the final episode.
Exactly,
Obviously,
yeah.
him and Magnus's, their relationship, all of that stuff. I get it, but I really wish, because he plays into it in such a kind of an expected way. I kind of wish we would have seen what it would have been like if this had been written where he was actually just dead.
Yeah, because all that stuff you just mentioned, all that dynamic between him and Magnus, as great as that stuff is, it's stuff we've seen before. We've seen that before. Let's Scott carry this thing. Let him bear the weight of this whole mission.
Yeah, and I thought it would have been, not to jump too far ahead, but I mean, this whole thing is spoilers here if we hadn't mentioned. Sorry, spoilers. This whole thing is spoilers, but not to jump too far ahead, but like we mentioned Rogue kind of defected. Like, I thought it would have been more interesting, like, without having the Xavier card to play, without the mindfuckery of Magneto, like, maybe she's the thing that tries to keep pulling him back.
Right.
And maybe you write it where some of the stuff we'll see later on here with him and Wolverine, maybe you write it in a way that maybe she finally figures out a way that she can actually touch him and actually absorb his powers, and that be the way that they kind of set things back with the Earth. Something like that I thought would be more interesting than the Charles and Magneto stuff. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I don't know. I really don't care for Xavier in this show as much. Like, I really kind of wish he would have stayed dead or stayed on the sidelines and kind of let the X-Men really shine here. Yeah. Because I mean, they're kind of cold to him too. Because I'm like, he's like, you're up there with your space bitch, and we've been down here fighting your fight. You're the one that set this in motion. I think there's a line. Who was it that was talking to him about, like, you always looked at us as like students or fighters or something instead of people? Was it Gene?
I can't remember.
I don't remember, but there's somebody that tells him that line. It's like, basically, you've always looked at us like, you've never looked at us as human beings, like, and now you're wanting to do it, kind of thing. Like, so I mean, there's good dynamics between that, and they don't just completely gloss over it. But again, we gotta go.
Yeah, the pacing's got to pick up because we're down to like 2 episodes now.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention my Xavier problem here. Like,
Right.
I just wanted to mention that because again, I'm probably in the minority, but I just kind of wish he was left alone or
dead.
left him dead. Exactly. Also want to mention here, here's a good time to actually remind you guys to like and subscribe on the video today.
Ting.
Ting. Let's fit that in a little bit. That's very much appreciated. It really does help out the channel. Tells the YouTube algorithm, hey, I kind of like this. Yeah. All right, Todd. So the band's back together. You've got Xavier's back. Storm and Forge are back.
Storm and Forge are back, yes.
Cable's around.
Cable's still around.
Somebody gave Roberto a costume.
Who? I don't know.
I don't know where that come from.
Was it Uncle Alfred? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Suit me up, Uncle Alfred. And Rogue, she's out of her mini coma. We should mention she kind of from episode 7 to 8, she got knocked out by the Trask mutant sentinel hybrid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And she was kind of in a mini coma through all episode 8. That was what Wolverine and Nightcrawler, in addition to just taking down those hybrids in the mansion, they were also trying to kind of protect her a little bit.
Right.
She's out of her mini coma though. Again, we mentioned the band isn't back together long. Magnus pops down. Rogue and Roberto decide to kind of go with him. And you want to kind of explain why Magneto is kind of getting out of Dodge and heading to space on asteroid M Time, kind of setting up what's going on Earth at this point.
Basically, from my point of view, he's just kind of like, hey, you know, mankind has had its chance. You know, they fucked us over from the beginning. You know, we're going to go up here on my asteroid. We're going to watch the world burn.
Yeah, it's set up.
Are you with me?
The only ones smart enough to go with him are Rogue and Roberto, in my opinion. I'd have went. Honestly, I'd have went
right.
if I was any of them. But basically, I think the thing here to think about too is like they've set up. I think Nightcrawler mentions it, and it's set up through the episode that like this worldwide blackout. There's no electricity. Basically, Magneto has set back by changing the poles or doing whatever he did in episode 8. It set the world back to pre-revolutionary times, right?
You see like lootings and people, robbing and
exactly like it's utter chaos. There's no power. There's no basic municipal stuff. Like none of the basic necessities of life. It's just kind of anarchy. And like I said, he's going to retreat to Asteroid M and watch it all kind of burn.
Yeah.
I think the X-Men say they have about 12 hours to revert the damage, or it's basically game
permanent,
over.
yeah.
Basically going to be permanent. You mentioned that they headed to Muir Island. I could not remember the name of it. I was just like, I wrote Scotland. Because you hear the bagpipes playing when you see the little when you see like the castle kind of thing they're in.
Imagine me being the one that remembered something.
I was like, I wrote Scotland. But they go there because obviously the mansion has been torn to shit. So they go there to get like resupplies and get new costumes. By the way,
oh yeah.
What did you think of the new costumes? Any of them stick out to you as good or bad?
Kind of new old costumes, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
For Cyclops, I've always preferred the one he started out in, that kind of Jim Lee X-Men #1 costume he had.
When he is the Cable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one. I always prefer the yellow and blue for Wolverine. I don't mind the brown. And
I think the brown looks really good in this with this animation style.
It did, though, yeah.
Like, I think later on when we see it in this episode, I think the brown looks really good on him. Like, I agree. Like I would go classic yellow and blue, but like the brown looks good too.
Now Jean's old Marvel Girl costume,
yeah, I don't feel that one as much. I think Nightcrawler, he stays the same.
Pretty much, yeah.
Cable gets Cyclops' old suit.
Yeah.
Who else are we forgetting? Storm already has a new outfit.
Yeah, she went back to kind of her classic black.
Yeah, Beast doesn't get anything.
Yeah, he
blue. Might get a belt buckle or something. You don't know.
He got a new belt buckle.
He got a new belt buckle. He got a new X belt buckle. Anybody we're missing from the main team? Rogue, she's kind of the same. Jubilee goes shopping with Roberto at one point and gets like a black kind of cat suit
kind
looking
of her stealth look, maybe.
Yeah, and Roberto, again, we mentioned he got a costume.
He got his costume.
Somebody, maybe Iceman's old costume or something. Like it was in somebody's Foot Locker, and I'm like, yeah, put this on, kid.
Yeah, go ahead.
So during the climax of this show, so we've got fights kind of taking place simultaneously. As you mentioned, we've got two teams. We've got Jean's team. You got Jean, Storm, Forge, Cable, Beast, and Morph, and they're taking on some OG Sentinels.
Yeah.
They're taking on Mr. Sinister and eventually Bastion. Then you've got kind of Scott's team. You've got Xavier's team too. You've got Xavier, Cyclops, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee. They head to Asteroid M to take on Rogue, Roberto, and kind of appeal to / murder Magneto. And we'll talk about that in a second. The Jeans team, they're kind of going to find Bastion. They're hoping to kind of slap onto him like a Forge created power dampening collar.
Kind of breaks his connection to those human Sentinel hybrids.
Yeah, it interrupts his techno disco powers, whatever powers that he's supposed to have,
right,
and able to create and control these things. With Xavier's team, again, I mentioned that the option was to appeal to Magnus's better side, his better nature, or to murder him.
Or to murder him.
Wolverine chooses the murder option, and I
Who
think
saw that coming, right?
yeah, who saw that coming? Tell us what happens when Wolverine chooses the murder option there, Todd.
So basically, ripped straight out of a famous miniseries in the comics, Magneto rips all the adamantium out of Wolverine's body.
And a very badass scene. Like
Yeah.
again, it's Wolverine kind of gets his moment out of episode 8. He also gets a moment here. He stabs Magnus in the back.
Yep.
And then Magnus turns around and rips all the adamantium out of it. And that's kind of how you end episode 9 with like this bloodied, half exploded Wolverine with the adamantium now removed from his body.
Pretty badass.
It is a badass. It's a very small moment. The action here comes in like kind of quick, sporadic bursts. It's not fully action. There's a moment or two of, a little bit of character development or a little bit of setting up the next thing, spurts, sporadic, action, and then, kind of roll back in and cycle it over.
Right.
But like the moment with Wolverine and the stuff on Asteroid M, I thought was more interesting than the Gene stuff and
It was.
the Bastion stuff. But like that moment with Wolverine was like probably one of the highlights of the season, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably, I wouldn't call it fan service, but it is definitely something to like just a nod, a tip of the hat
Yeah.
to the fans of this story that's kind of wanted to see this happen for years. And they kind of hinted at it a lot with the X-Men films with Magneto's powers and how it kind of affects Logan.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So it was a nice little kind of tip of the hat here. But again, that's kind of the last shot we kind of freeze on is that like half exploded adamantium extracted Wolverine. And that's where we end episode 9. So with episode 9 in the books, Todd, what are your final thoughts and your review score for episode 9?
We're definitely ramping up here. We've got one episode left.
One episode.
I think I'm going to stick with a 7 overall. I think this is another just good. It's a good, solid episode. I think, the team that's on Asteroid M is definitely the better of the two teams as far as what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. The battle that they're going through, definitely the Wolverine adamantium removal is the highlight of the episode. That's good. It's a good episode.
I think we're in sync again. Yeah, I'm at a 7 too. Like I think these last 2 episodes have been consistently good. We'll see where we go with episode 10 with our scores for that. But I'm in agreement with you. I think these both set a good tone. They don't take it up a tier. None of these episodes reach the heights of like episode 5.
No.
Which you kind of maybe you do, maybe you don't, depending on your perspective, like expect them to reach those heights. But none of these 3 quite do that, but I think it's a solid finish to the season with a few little problems here and there, mostly pacing.
Yes.
That's going to be my big thing that you hear me bitch and moan about is pacing. And I think a lot of people have kind of pointed that out as a problem.
Yeah.
You've got 10 episodes, and I understand you've only got a limited amount of time, but there were some things when we talk about the season overall that, kind of can point to maybe have helped with those problems a little bit.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
we're going through a lot of stuff. We're setting up we've got a lot of threads going, a lot of plates spinning heading into episode 10. Asteroid M stuff, the Bastion stuff, like all that, it's kind of still in the air. So let's move on to our last episode of the season, Todd.
Here we are, the finale, baby.
Finale. What do you think the story was in episode 10? That's part 3 of Tolerance's Extinction.
So now that the murder route has not worked, here comes Professor X, and he's going to do the only thing he can do, and that's enter Magneto's mind, try to reason with him, try to basically deep probe him. He says there's a chance that if it doesn't work, he could lose his mind as well as Magnus's mind. All that while, things are going to hell on Earth. We got the government trying to decide whether to just blow that asteroid on out of orbit. Would that be the best thing to do?
Yeah. And as you'd expect, this episode is heavy on the action.
Yeah.
It's also heavy on the cameos.
A lot of cameos.
Here's what I saw, Todd. You tell me if I missed anything. I saw Silver Samurai, Daredevil,
Oh, yeah.
Captain America, and Iron Man.
Yeah.
And also, I looked this up too to see if I was crazy. Walter White. I don't know if you're familiar with Walter White. You've never watched Breaking Bad, correct?
He's in here?
He's in that. I looked at some Reddit threads, and everyone's in agreement. There's no way it's not Walter White. It looks so much like Bryan Cranston.
Well, damn,
Walter
that's
White.
cool.
He's in the little government, briefing room with Cap and Iron Man. He's in there. Also, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and the Dora Milaje. Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger, yeah.
Omega Red, Crimson Dynamo, and Dark Star. North Star, Aurora, and Puck.
Puck.
Psylocke, in kind of silhouetted, shadowy stuff in Magnus's mind, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Polaris.
Nice.
We also get Morph as Mr. Fantastic.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Sauron, the dragon dude from the Savage Land.
And there was one of them. Was it this one or the other episode where he turned into the Hulk morph?
It was the other
Okay.
episode. I think
That
it was
was pretty
8 or
cool,
9.
too,
Yeah,
yeah.
there was a couple of cameos.
Yeah.
Like he was Hulk and he was somebody else in one Juggernaut.
That's it.
And we also see Peter Parker, which we also got a cameo of him as Spider-Man in one of the episodes
That's
too.
right.
We didn't mention.
Yeah.
But you get Peter Parker, MJ, and Flash Thompson. They're kind of like on the street watching the news reports of America's about to nuke Asteroid M kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of cameos here. What do you think about all the cameos, Todd? Too much? Not enough? Just right?
I just want to say, if anybody at Marvel may actually listen, if you want to take that version of Daredevil, do your little 10-episoder, maybe with the Bullseye Elektra triangle where Bullseye kills Elektra with that sigh running it through her. Please do it.
Or resurrect Spider-Man too.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the style and the art style of that Daredevil though. Like I thought that was cool. I mean, he's out, I guess, in Hell's Kitchen, just stopping some random.
That was a badass Daredevil, though.
It is a good look for him. But I mean, all together, all told, what do you think of the cameo?
They didn't really take me out of the story. I mean, this is something they kind of did back in the OG X-Men series. You know, other Marvel characters showed up. This is still very much an X-Men. This is their show. This is their story. But it doesn't hurt to show that there's, the other characters still exist. They're around.
Yeah, and I think it's fine too because like you set up a precedent in like the original TAS, the original show, where these characters have all kind of come in at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I think Doctor Doom popped up in episode 8 or 9 too, where he was like, "I don't want you to think the bullshit you're pulling over Bastion has been overlooked," kind of thing.
Right,
like,
right.
I see what you're doing, guy.
Yeah.
Kind of moment they have between those two. But yeah, I thought like they all worked. Obviously, I think everybody was like hoping you would get Spider-Man and also get that voice actor back and maybe have a little bit more
With him,
But I'm hoping maybe spinning off from this show, maybe a resurrection of that show. Like you said, I'm in agreement with you. I'd love to see a little mini Daredevil animated miniseries.
Yeah.
Do something really cool with that. Like, again, I really like the design. So I thought it was just enough. I didn't think it was too fan servicey. I thought it felt right because, again, we're talking about in the show's context, the setting up the extinction of the Earth.
Yeah.
So to see what these characters are up to, I also like that the Doctor Strange, he had very much his MCU looking powers.
Oh,
As
yeah.
he's kind of like performing surgery with his powers,
Yeah.
not using his actual broken, mangled hands. So while Xavier, he's kind of playing mind games with Magneto, he's trying to kind of, at this point in the show, he's moved on from like destroying his mind almost potentially to now trying to restore it and bring him back to figure out who he actually is and to remember who he is. We see Dreams Group. They're kind of taking on Bastion at this point. Unexpectedly, to me, I guess. I don't know if anyone else saw it coming. We get to Phoenix again.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Jean Grey is the Phoenix once again. She makes kind of short work of Sinister. She kind of like sucks the DNA out of him. When was the last time you had any DNA sucked out, Todd?
And cut.
I love the little moment though where you get little shriveled Mr. Sinister
Right.
after she does, like, because his whole thing is like taking DNA and cells and keeping himself young, basically immortal, and she kind of like takes all that away from him, and he goes running to Morph and he's like, "Show me my face," and Morph like changes his head to be like, "It looks the same to me." And there's just this little moment where he runs away and he's like, "Ah!" And it's like just the funniest little scream he lets out, like as he's just this like shriveled little emaciated little piece of shit man now. And I'm like, I loved it. I thought it was a good moment, but I really didn't expect the Phoenix to come. I don't even know if that works in the context of the show and what that's been set up. I don't really know that it works, but for me, narratively, it might not, but for me, it worked.
It was nice to see. Yeah, it was cool.
It was nice to see.
Cool nod.
It doesn't. You would think it would be the kind of the ultimate trump card, but it's not.
No.
In the climax of the show, Bastion, he kind of rips off Cable's arm, ends up beating him with it.
Beating him with his own arm.
Quit hitting yourself. Quit hitting yourself. And then he pulls like a Frieza. He pulls like a Dragon Ball Z Frieza as he like transforms using Cable's arm, which I'm assuming is adamantium. I'm not sure.
I would think.
I would think it's adamantium, and he kind of transforms, and now he's all metally with wings and stuff now. He's got a very like archangelish,
Looks very Archangel look.
a
Yeah.
very archangelish kind of vibe. And he kind of leaves Gene's group to kind of head for asteroid M. His plan is to kind of take it out of sky and hurl it at Earth.
Yeah.
Just pull a dinosaurs in the Ice Age kind of thing.
Right.
So the X-Men and Bastion, they have a pretty good beat 'em up, I would say, before America intervenes, Todd. So what does America decide to do about asteroid M, and what did you think about the whole fight with Bastion as well?
So we found out that the government has kind of had these, I think they call them Magneto protocols or Magnus protocols in place. And they decided to just go ahead at the behest of Captain America.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just shoot some nukes up into orbit and just blow that asteroid out of the sky.
This Captain America too, like it gives Superman and Dark Knight Returns vibes, like a shield of the government,
Very much, yeah.
like just a Boy Scout puppet of the
Right.
government. Like this Captain America gives those kind of vibes. But what did you think about the fight with Bastion?
I thought that was pretty good stuff. I liked how he could take a lot of damage, get pretty fucked up, but then just like, beep, boop, 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 he's right back.
Right? Yeah, because the Gene's team, they kind of were stranded by him as he kind of took off because the Blackbird had kind of been destroyed. You see,
Right.
like, I think Beast and Forge were kind of working on it.
Yeah.
Most of that team ends up showing up in like an OG Sentinel that Beast is just piloting.
Oh, yeah, they fly in an old
They
Sentinel.
fly in. They try to like squash him and step on him at one point. I thought it was a good fight. Jubilee actually gets in a good blow on him and
Yeah.
like mangles up his face. Like I thought overall it was is a pretty good fight.
It's good stuff.
As we see America, they've kind of launched those nukes. They've done the Magnus Protocol. They've decided to strike against asteroid M2. They're hoping to blow it up completely, but of course that doesn't work.
No.
And in between those events, we get a nice emotional scene between Cable and like telepathically there, Scott and Jean.
Yeah, good stuff.
And through these last few episodes, her character has kind of wrestled with the idea of like being Nathan's mother. Like even though she obviously Madeline is his actual mother, but Madeline is a clone of Jean Grey. So she's kind of wrestled with those feelings of like how involved to be, how to feel about it. She has the memories of him like kicking and the feelings of him
Yeah.
being born and all this kind of stuff. So she's kind of wrestled with it. But it was a nice little to take a beat between the action because this is the heavier of all the action of the 3 episodes.
Definitely.
It was nice to have a beat in between to have a nice little emotional moment between Cable and kind of also remember he's there because everybody else kind of hits the asteroid M. I think he's in a diner.
It looked like he was in a diner.
He's just like, I'm going to get a piece of pie and some coffee and watch the world burn, I guess.
I lost my arm. I'm out of this one.
Yeah, but it was just nice to have kind of a little emotional moment to kind
It
of
was.
wrap things up. As asteroid M is kind of hurtling to Earth, and besides the Summers kind of saying their goodbyes to each other, we also see Morph as Jean. He tells Logan, I love you, stay with me. Again, as Jean. So, Todd, what are your thoughts here? No, I'm sure I haven't really looked it up because I don't really like to hear the discourse from
Yeah.
all over the place anymore. It gets on my fucking nerves. But, like, what did you think personally about this moment and, like, the context that a fired showrunner, but someone that was heavily involved with,
Right.
that would know and that was part of setting this up the way it is? What did you think about that moment and your thoughts overall?
So we knew going in that Morph was going to be different. He was a non-binary character.
Right.
And we've kind of had a little bit of this sprinkled in earlier. You know, there was that earlier on where, I think Logan thought Scott and Jean were going to leave the team. And you remember Morph kind of goes out and takes, a 6-pack and some chips. And he kind of, I think, turns into Sabretooth and they kind of have a a little play fight or something.
Then there's isn't there a scene in episode 3 where he's like goes into the bathroom with somebody?
He's in the
too?
shower, yeah. And I mean, there's definitely, and then this scene too where he turns into Jean. You can look at this and project onto it what you want to. You can say, well, he's doing that to confess his love to Logan, or he's just trying to comfort a friend and trying to bring him back with the only face that he knows he truly loves.
Right.
This stuff exists in this show, but it's never to a point where it's just so right up in your fucking face. It just makes you, just takes you completely out of it. It's sprinkled in and it's kind of left to, I think, in a lot of ways, your judgment on it, how you want to view it, how you choose to see it.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, I don't, for me, in the context of just watching the show, like, I obviously knew the moments that happened before in the season.
Yeah.
There was a good moment, too, where once Logan, the adamantium, was kind of removed, I think when they put him on, like, the ship at some point, Scott kind of tells him, like, don't break her heart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, do what you do best, heal.
Yeah.
Like those good moments like that, but just specifically talking about the Morph moment. Like I guess when I watched it, my context was like in my own head, I was just like, he's again bringing comfort to somebody that he cares about, whatever way he cares about them, and he's again turning into the person that he knows that he loves and doing anything he can to kind of help him to fight.
Yeah.
You know, if you're telling me that's the context, I'm fine with it. If you're telling me there's more than that to it, if you're telling me that Morph does have feelings for him, okay.
I'm good with it.
All right.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think it's bad. Like
Yeah.
either way, again, because it's like you said, it's not being done in a way it's like forcing it down my throat.
Yeah.
And like, even if it was, I mean, it's if that's the character and the characterization you're going for, like, okay. But it's done in a way that I think it's fine for the context of a show that's based on a children's property made in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I mean, after all, this is animation, so you know, there's not a whole lot of gray area they can go into
And we're
with this.
we're trying to grow this show up with the audience that, of course, is going to come back and watch it, and I get that, and I like the fact that we're not just stuck in a situation where we just have to play relationships and dynamics only to children. There's enough there, and people can argue if that is what the show should be focusing on or not. Well, that might be a valid argument if you want to say we can grow the characters up in other ways besides worrying about their sexuality. Completely agree. That's a valid point. But I think if you're going to do it and you're lending context here, and it also gives Morph a little bit more to his character because he's just the guy that keeps turning into the Hulk and Juggernaut. You know what I mean? Like it
gives him a little depth.
It does give him a little depth, and like I'm the bottom line here, not to draw this point out too much, is I'm all right with it. I think the way it went, the way it was handled, perfectly fine. None of this has ever been too in my face. It's never been too woke for me, Todd.
Yeah, that's the word. It's never been too woke.
No, it's never been any of that. I think in the context of the show, I think it's fine. And I mean, people can have their opinions about it. But if you're watching this video and you've stayed with us almost 40 minutes at this point, I think hopefully you're all right with it. If not, you have your opinions about it as well. But these are ours, and I think it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't bother me. Todd hated it. No, I'm just fucking. I'm just fucking with you. No, I agree with you, Todd. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm sure I've heard it's been made a big deal of in some places, but for me, for us, I don't think it is.
If I've got issues with this series, Morph ain't one of them. I'll tell you right now.
No, not at all. So Xavier, he's finally able to restore Magnus's fragmented mind and kind of remind him of who he is. Who is he?
He's the master of magnetism, man.
He's Magneto, yes. Magneto, he stops Asteroid M and kind of saves the Earth. From there, I think this is a kind of a point where the moment Magneto is saving the Earth, stopping Asteroid M, that's when we kind of set up. That's where kind of, I would say, season 1 really truly ends. And now we're into setup for season 2.
Yeah, we're setting up what's coming.
You called a cliffhanger, and you were right. Cliffhanger a cliffhanger does indeed happen here, Todd. So what is the cliffhanger? What happens right at the moment that Magneto is saving Asteroid M from crashing?
Basically, there's just a big, poof in the sky, and Asteroid, everybody is gone.
It's gone. And we kind of learned through the last few moments of the show that everyone that was on Asteroid M at that moment was kind of scattered in time.
Yep.
So this includes Jean's group that made it to the asteroid, flying in that OG Sentinel we talked about. Minus Forge, Jubilee, and Roberto, they're still on the Earth. They didn't go to Asteroid M for whatever reason. Forge, Jubilee, Roberto, we'll call them the D team. We'll call them the D team. Xavier, Magneto, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, and Wolverine, they find themselves in 3000 BC Egypt, while Jean and Scott have landed in the future of 3960 AD.
Okay.
They're greeted by Jean and Scott. They're greeted by young Nathan Summers and a character named Mother, was it Ascani? Ascani?
We'll go with that.
Yeah, something like that. Mother Ascani, a.k.a. Rachel Summers, Todd.
I did not know that.
A alternate timeline daughter of Jean and Scott.
Okay.
So some future shenanigans are about to unfold. I think a lot of this could potentially play into a Days of Future Past-esque kind of
Oh, yeah.
storyline kind
Yeah.
of thing. Who is it for our Egypt team? Who is it that greets the Egypt team, Todd?
They meet a young man that was going to become actual Apocalypse.
What's his name, Todd?
Well, you tell me, because I'm not going to do it.
In Sabanur.
Yeah, that guy.
is how he introduces himself. Yes, it's Young Apocalypse,
Yes.
folks. We've got Young Apocalypse. And I didn't actually watch long enough to catch this, but you said there's actually a mid-credit scene, Todd. You want to explain that?
Yes, so we go back to the ruins of Genosha, and we see we can tell it's actual apocalypse, full blown apocalypse. And he kind of digs through the ash and he pulls out Gambit's playing card. He says a line, I don't remember what it was, and then we go back to the credits.
Gotcha.
So, is Gambit going to be resurrected as an acolyte of apocalypse?
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't he at one point wasn't he war at some point or something, or death maybe?
I think you may be right.
I think he was one of the horsemen at one point. I think he was Death, if I'm not mistaken. So again, setting up, pulling that string for season 2. Again, we have some time travel shenanigans, which can get messy, but we'll see.
We'll see how they play it.
We'll see how they play it. But some potential Days of Future Past type stuff. What's going on with Apocalypse? So definitely a lot of seeds planted for season 2 to kind of keep you interested here. Before we move on to final overall thoughts of the season, Todd, what did you think? Give us your review score and final thoughts for episode 10.
I think at the end, I think we're going to stay at a 7. I think this was another good, solid episode. All 3 of these were good and solid. There is some pacing issues. We're trying to get everything wrapped up. We got a lot of threads we got to tie together. Plus, you got to do a little bit of setup for a potential season 2. So I think that aside, I think it's still just another good, solid episode and a good, solid ending.
Yep, I agree. We're right on track. When I wrote my reviews, I was like 777. It's like jackpot, like pulling the wheel on a whatever they're called. What are they called?
Like a
slot machine.
Slot machine.
Yeah, slot machine.
We couldn't remember what a slot machine was.
You remembered Muir Island, but
I couldn't remember what a
slot machine was. Ching ching. But yeah, I go with a 7 as well. I think all 3 of these last episodes are just good. I don't think they rise to another tier. I don't think they take it to another level. I think it's a satisfying conclusion in a form of a 3-parter for this season that leaves me wanting more from season 2.
Yeah,
and hopefully more and hopefully better. Again, the season never got as high as episode 5, and it didn't get as low in the end as some of the early episodes, like episode 4 with Jubilee and episode 6 with Xavier, in my opinion. So
right.
I thought it was, again, solid episode. I'm going to say a 7 as well. So now that we've covered the last 3 episodes, Todd, so give me your kind of review and overall thoughts for season 1.
So coming to the finish line of this thing, I can still say, as I think I've kind of sprinkled in as we've done the other episodes, this is as excited as I've been for a Marvel property in a pretty good while, I would say, since the last Spider-Verse movie. Spider-Verse and Guardians 3. I think, like you say, some hiccups earlier on, that Jubilee little tack on, and did you really need that Xavier tack on to Life Death? Life Death should have just been one episode to itself. Some pacing issues towards the end. This is still a great series, and that's my score. I give it an 8. I think it was a great series. I'm hoping they do a season 2. I hope they do some more Marvel animated properties, because I think right now, they found something here, and I kind of hope they continue with it.
Yeah, again, we're in complete agreement here. We're kind of across the board. I also go with an 8 overall for this season. I think it's a great season. I think coming back 30 years later, I don't think you could really ask for a better start to this.
Yeah.
Does it have problems? Yes.
Yes.
It has pacing issues. There was time wasted on Jubilee and Roberto this season that could have had time spent with Storm and Forge. Those were probably some of the weaker aspects of this season, is how rushed their relationship was to not really amount to much in the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Maybe it plays a factor in season 2, but we set up a couple of episodes of trying to set up their relationship and really quickly getting them from meeting to in love, and then we do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of quickly, we get a Jubilee, Roberto, and what's his name? Mondo? What's his name?
Oh, was it Mondo?
I don't know. Man,
I never forgot his name.
We suck. The fat little fucky
Mojo.
Mojo, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, Mondo. I don't know what I was thinking. Mondo Gecko from TMNT. Yeah, so you get Mojo. Like that little like kind of side story, that's like a filler episode. And for
At 10 episodes, you don't really have time for filler.
Yeah, exactly. But then you get the highs of something like the attack on Genosha in episode 5.
Definitely.
The death of Gambit. All the great stuff that was done with Magneto this season. That was another highlight. It was nice to see him back in the classic costume by the end of the show.
Yeah, yeah.
I was all right with his evening wear, looking with his elbow length gloves and stuff. I was all right with it, but I prefer classic costume Magneto myself. So it was good to see him get back in that. Pacing issues, some slight animation issues here and there in the show, overall prevents it from going above an 8. But I think overall, if you haven't watched the show, like Todd said, it is definitely one of the best. It's the best Marvel TV show, I think, in the MCU era for sure.
Definitely.
You can debate about pre-MCU, pre-Feige era and all that stuff about how good the show is. But as far as I'll put this up against any live action Marvel show any day.
Oh, any day. Definitely.
I think it's by far the best thing Marvel has done TV wise. I'd love more. I'd love a Daredevil show.
Please.
I'd love a Spider-Man show, to spin out of this. I think there's room for season 2 to grow and be even better. Maybe, I'm not I don't want to see it jump up to no 20 episode run or anything.
Right.
But maybe if you're getting a little bigger, maybe knock it out to 12 episodes or something.
Yeah.
Give yourself a little bit more room to breathe, or just make a little bit better decisions with the pacing and what you're going to focus on. I understand it's an ensemble and you want to kind of give everybody a little bit of moment, but at some point somebody's got to suffer. And on the whole, characters like Jubilee are never going to be as popular as Jean and Storm and Scott and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Save those episodes for when you have the time to flesh them out and when you have a meaningful story to flesh them out.
Right.
Not some random Mojo game adventure.
Gotcha.
Give me some actual development for Jubilee if I'm going to watch a Jubilee episode.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. But overall, we both agree. Great season, great show. Can't wait for season 2. So, guys, that's it for this episode. Check out some of our other reviews. We've got 2 other X-Men videos, checking out the first 4 episodes. Then we have 5 through 7, as well as this video and a bunch of other videos on the channel. We appreciate you coming by and watching this episode with us. If you would, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out. Again, Todd, anything else to say?
I think we're out of here.
He's Todd Hill. I'm Cody Nestor. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.